everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today is going to be another challenge chat or a challenge episode recap, and today we're talking about episode 11. So this episode was super weird because I've come to realize that it actually was re-edited like at the last minute. So the episode that just aired, episode 11, they cut as much of Dee out as they possibly could. Now, if you're behind or if you're not watching this season, Dee made some very controversial and ignorant comments surrounding the Black Lives Matter movement, which we all know is a huge deal. And right now, almost every social media platform is filled with information surrounding this movement, and Dee had made some comments about it that MTV considered inappropriate, and I agree. However, they decided that because of this, they were going to cut ties with her and actually cut her from any future seasons. Dee is not going to be on any other seasons or any other show on MTV. Now, I definitely think that MTV is going the right direction. However, I think one reason they're doing this is kind of to make up for the way that they've handled these types of situations in the past. So Dee made some remarks on social media, and that got her pretty much banned from MTV. However, there have been other challengers in the past that have made racist comments on camera to someone else on the cast, and they never got reprimanded for that. Now, one situation I can think of right away is Camilla. When she and Leroy were kind of getting into it, she had been insulting him and happened to point out the fact that he's black and used it as an adjective to describe him in this argument, pretty much insinuating that because he's black, that's an insult. Like, she had said, "You black," and then a bunch of other things after that. So after this happened, Camilla wasn't banned from MTV right away. She was later on because of another incident that occurred, supposedly with production, but never because of the way she acted towards Leroy. Now, I also had read online that Jordan at one time made some racial comments against Naya, which I had no clue about, so that's kind of a bummer to find out. And then of course we have Emily, who on one of the seasons, she was dressing up, pretending to be Leroy, her and Paula, I believe, and she actually had done the blackface, which most people know is very racist. However, Emily did not know this. That's a whole other argument, but Emily did that, and she pretty much blamed it on her being uneducated about the topic. So what I'm trying to say here is that there has been a history of racial actions and racism on the challenge before, and nothing has been done. So now finally, I don't know if it's that MTV has recognized their past mistakes, if they just want to make sure they make a statement to show the world that they're on board with the Black Lives Matter movement, but regardless, Dee has been cut from MTV, and because of that, it seems like they cut her out of this whole episode. So at the beginning of the episode, there was even a blurb or a statement that displayed on the screen from MTV, also reiterating the fact that they are removing Dee from MTV and they're cutting ties with her. I've mentioned this Instagram before, but the Challenge T911 Instagram posts occasional spoilers or just like tea, pretty much what the name says. So if anything goes down online, they usually repost it. If challengers are arguing with each other online, or if they find out something like an unknown fact about the season, the Challenge T Instagram posts that. And so now they actually posted an unedited version of this past week's episode, or showed some unedited clips on their page. And so many things were cut out from this episode, so that's why it's really strange. So at this point, everyone is starting to panic about earning their red skull, which of course they need to make it into the final. So on the girls' side, for instance, Nany is starting to worry, Maddie is starting to worry. They're both saying they're ready to get in there and get their red skull. And so they're hoping that they do good in the challenge this week so that they can earn their way into the tribunal and ultimately nominate themselves to go in and earn the red skull. So the challenge was pretty cool this week. The challenge was called Flag Down, and the players were hanging from a tank. I'll insert a picture here. So they're hanging from a tank. The tank is driving, and as it's driving, the players have to pick up flags from the ground. So the more flags they grab, the more points they earn, and then the more white flags they grab, the higher their score will be. So they pretty much want to go for all the flags, but mostly the white ones. The challenging part is that there are going to be boxes in the way that they're basically going to be crashing into. There's going to be little explosions happening along the way, which could startle you and you could drop the flags you already have, or there's just so much commotion going on in your field of vision that you're unable to see the flags to grab them in time. Also, the players are hanging right next to each other, and so there's definitely the potential for the players to be fighting over the flags when they do see one. There's some players that are paired next to each other are paired with someone who hasn't earned a red skull. For instance, Nany and Jenny were together, and Jenny's already earned her red skull. Nany wants to get hers and wants to be in the tribunal, so they kind of team up strategy-wise together, and at the end, all the flags that Jenny earned, she just gave to Nany, and so Nany had a higher score. Kyle and Rogan also had a similar strategy, and so did Fessy and Nelson. So they're thinking like working together, let's try to get you into the tribunal and work that way. However, at the end, TJ says this was meant to show your individual strength, and anyone that cheated or worked together and gave someone else their flags were disqualified. So of course Nany's upset because I think she had one of the highest scores, so she probably would have been in the tribunal. But TJ disqualified anyone that cheated, and so Josh and Melissa ended up being the winners. Now here is where some of that editing got changed. So during the challenge, Bailey and Dee were both hanging next to each other during this part, and so they actually kind of got into it while they were doing the challenge. So Bailey felt that Dee was being a little too physical and kind of like elbowing and punching Bailey to get her out of the way to grab her flags, and Bailey didn't appreciate that. So they got into a little argument, but that was cut from the show. So more things that were cut from the episode included the whole house pretty much plotting against Dee. So this kind of started in the previous episode, but this episode for sure, like Johnny, Jenny, and Josh, they all, and Rogan even, are trying to get rid of Dee. So they're trying to come up with a plan. The problem is that Melissa and Josh both won the challenge, so they're both on the tribunal, and they actually pulled in Johnny Bananas to be on the tribunal with them. So the problem is that Melissa considers Dee to be one of her friends and one of her biggest allies in the game. So Melissa is like, there is no way I'm throwing Dee in. And to her knowledge, there would be no way that Josh would throw Dee in either. Now Bananas and Dee clearly don't like each other. Dee knows this, and so Dee would automatically assume that Bananas would try to get her thrown in, but she knows that she has her two friends, Melissa and Josh, on the tribunal. So when it comes time for the tribunal to pick the people that they have to put up for possible elimination, Melissa gets worried when they mention Dee because it seems like every time they have a burn vote. So a burn vote pretty much just means they have to nominate 3 people. Even if 2 people are volunteering and want to go in, we still are required to say one more person. So there has to be 3. So that third person is usually the burn vote. So Johnny says that Dee is just going to be the burn vote. No shoot. Now Bailey and Swaggy are definitely on board with this plan because Bailey really feels like Dee was very unnecessary in the challenge, using the physicalness against her. She also thinks that Dee is sketchy and just thinks that she was trying to sabotage her, and so she definitely doesn't like her. So Swaggy and Bailey are definitely on board. But Johnny wants to make sure that this whole plan stays a secret. So even though Rogan, knows that this is happening, he ends up hooking up with Dee in the showers. But this was not shown. This wasn't shown on TV at all. This is all coming from the Challenge T911 Instagram. So Dee thinks everything is just fine and dandy between her and Rogan. I think that Dee also thinks that her and Jenny are still on good terms because they've been hanging out, talking. Jenny said that Dee's been pretty much treating her like normal, even though just a few episodes ago, Dee suggested that Jenny get thrown in. So in the back of Jenny's mind, she knows that Dee is being fake towards her. So she's also on board with the plan to get Dee thrown in. So when it comes time to have the tribunal pick their three, to have the House vote in one person first. And Maddie just went ahead and volunteered herself, so they didn't even need to vote. Maddie volunteered, so she's definitely the House vote and one of the girls up for possible elimination. Now the tribunal has to name their other three. So Nany has also mentioned that she's wanted to go in, so they choose Nany. They also choose Bailey. She hasn't earned her red skull yet either. And then they end up choosing Dee as the third person. So just remember, the House vote is the person that is automatically going in. So Maddie is for sure going in. Now the three that the tribunal nominated are possibilities, and then anyone in the tribunal is a possibility too. So Melissa, if she feels like she wants to go against Maddie, she could, but when you compare their size and strength, Melissa pretty much says she doesn't think she has the best chance against Maddie, so it's most likely going to be one of the three others. So we get to the elimination, and it's something that they haven't seen yet. And so Melissa is definitely unsure, and she passes on the chance to go against Maddie. Now when it comes time for the tribunal to officially throw in who they're going to throw in, they each vote. So it seems like the tribunal kind of had a plan, or Melissa thought they had a plan. And so they get to the elimination, and Melissa throws her vote first, and she votes for Bailey. So one vote, Bailey. Then it's time for Bananas to vote, and he votes for Dee. But the weird part is that he literally asked Rogan, like, Rogan, is it okay? Or Rogan, do I have your permission to throw this person in? He looked right at Dee and then said, yeah. And so Bananas nominates Dee. So it seemed kind of weird that Bananas had to ask Rogan, because it's kind of just stirring the pot. So now Dee knows that Rogan wants her gone too. So Dee has one vote, and now it's time for Josh to make the final vote and make the decision. And Melissa just looks at Josh and is like, don't you dare, do not say Dee's name, because that's not what we agreed on. And what does Josh do? He says Dee's name. There are two giant glass tunnels filled with dirt, and essentially the people have to dig their way from one end to the other. So it's Dee versus Maddie. I think right away I'm thinking anyone has a shot. It could go either way. I know for me it'd be kind of hard because I'd feel claustrophobic. You really don't have any room to move. You're just crawling through this space and digging the dirt out to make it through. So from the beginning, it kind of seems like Dee has a head start on Maddie. As the challenge continues, Maddie's just really struggling with her size and trying to find a way to get through. And in the end, Dee ends up winning. So it's like all of the things that the House did to get her thrown in backfired on them because she won. So now she knows at least some people are against her. Now she's back in the House, and she knocked off Maddie. So Dee is still around in the House, and I'm wondering how that's going to affect the rest of the season. The challenge, MTV said they were going to air the season as normal, just out of respect for everyone else. Like, continuing airing the season and not pull it off the air, since there were other competitors on the show. But last night's episode was like completely botched. It didn't really make that much sense to me until I found out that there were pieces that got edited out, and that kind of added to the storyline of showing the House kind of turning against Dee, which now in real life everyone is turning against Dee. So it's very interesting, the timing of this episode. But I wish that MTV would just let it play as is and not do whatever they can to cut her out of all the scenes. They already made their official statement. We know that she's not going to be on future seasons. I wish they would just let the season air how they already edited it, just so it makes more sense, because this episode in general just seemed like botched, and it seemed like it was like jumping around, like from one thing, like the challenge, to everyone going against Dee. And there were none of these side conversations put into the episode. And so there wasn't a lot of context for what was going on. The unedited version also includes Dee pretty much lashing out at the tribunal and being very upset at Josh specifically. And so there's just a lot of backstory that I think they should have included. So go check out the Instagram if you can. Request to follow them and check out the unedited scenes, and then that'll hopefully give you some more context for the future. But otherwise, let me know your thoughts on this episode. Do you wish that Dee would have went home? Do you think the whole House is going to continue to be against her, and how far do you think she will get? Otherwise, if you like videos like this, make sure you like it and subscribe to my channel. I hope you like this video, and I will see you in my next one.